Everyone, and welcome to another video. I'm Simply G, and today I'm going to be showing off all of the anime that I got for this month of May. There is so much to get through. There's a couple sales, a couple limited edition things came out, so hopefully a good mix of stuff. And rather than spend too long on this intro, I'll get straight into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. Is a import from Japan. I bought this secondhand from Mandarake. Not necessarily to watch it because I already own this on Blu-ray, but more so this is going to make no sense to anyone, but I have a couple shows, some that aren't released in English, that I've bought the Japanese set for. Others I just am such a huge fan, I don't mind owning it in a couple of different versions. And Japanese releases obviously do have like such a huge amount of extra stuff that goes into a physical release to kind of justify the huge expenses of which physical releases are set at in Japan. So I got this entire box, and I honestly mainly got it for the box. Although I do love this show, and I wish it wasn't out of print in the US and English-speaking market, because I want more people to watch this series. And that is Solitar, the Blu-ray box set, which obviously comes in this cute little box. Solitar Station Fishing Story, which is the story of 4 teens. Notably these 4 boys who are classmates and fishing buddies, and maybe aliens, and maybe alien hunters, and all sorts of different things. It's a quirky, fun, hopeful, really joyous series. I really, really love Solitar. It's chock to the brim with friendship and really great themes of finding your place and finding people who understand you, as well as really interesting depictions of anxiety and visualizing that anxiety as well. I think it's just overwhelmingly a lot of fun. I enjoyed every second of it. This was a series I watched back when it first came out, as it was airing. I bought the English Blu-ray back then because I was like, I need to own this. I love this series so much. And so this was fairly cheap, like very much cheap for a Japanese release when I saw it on Mandarake, and I put it in my cart, and next thing I knew, it was at my door. Really, really, really happy to have this. Again, not for any actual use maybe, but I do like to have this. One of my other series that I own, it doesn't have an outer box though, which is a shame, is the first 2 seasons are free. I also own Wandering Sun, aka Horomuso. Horomusuko. Oh my goodness. Which has never been released in English outside of streaming platforms. So there's a couple little things, and I've been eyeing some others, but for now I need to recover from all the other spending that I did this month, so it'll have to wait. But yeah, Solitar, the Japanese Blu-ray release. It's a bunch of limited edition sets, Blu-ray anime sets this month, all from the UK. 2 from the same company, the other 2 from another. I think it's the same company. Anyway, regardless, I got quite a few. And the first one was a series that I pre-ordered, and I kind of fear that I pre-ordered it twice because I got shipping notification for it twice. Only one has shown up, but if another one arrives, I know that it's my own fault. But I was just so keen to finally own this on Blu-ray, especially in a set that I could watch pretty easily here in Australia, and that is Paranoia Agent by Satoshi Kon. Kon's only television anime. obviously, I don't really need to tell people or introduce people to Satoshi Kon's work. He was an immensely respected, fantastic, interesting director with a lot to say. Sadly passed away many years ago now. But most well known for things like Paprika or Perfect Blue or Tokyo Godfathers. I don't know why I blanked on Perfect Blue for a second there. And Millennium Actress is my favorite of his films. I own all of his films on Blu-ray and have done so for a long time. In saying that, it's been a wait for this series. It's recently been released on Blu-ray from Funimation in the US and Canada. And this, I believe, is an MVM edition. So it's hard outer box, normal keep case, which I kind of prefer. I don't need steel books or anything. I'm not that fussy. The 2 discs, and this also comes with postcards, of which is probably the expected artwork with this, and we have Little Slugger on the back. I like with all of Kon's works, I absolutely adore this series. It's also the uncut version. I know that was an issue that a lot of people were wondering about in regards to the UK release, because way back in the day when it first came out on Blu-ray, it had a couple seconds cut out of the DVD release because of their ratings board. Wouldn't allow certain things to be shown or implied or whatever else. But that hasn't happened. It's a complete, full, uncut series. Still as psychologically thrilling, terrifying, speculative, and introspective as all of his works. And I look forward to rewatching this because it's been a little while since I've watched Paranoia Agent. And now I can rewatch it at my leisure. Definitely an upgrade from the old DVD sets, if nothing else. Really, really, really happy to have this. Happy upgrade for my collection from a DVD set that I had forever, and this is the UK release of Planetes, the anime adaptation of the manga of the same name, loose adaptation. I mean, it adapts almost all of the manga, but it structures it differently and it gives it more of a complete storyline, whereas the manga is a little bit more of vignettes that are strung together via circumstance and a larger group of people. But this is Anime Limited's Blu-ray release of the series on 3 discs. It comes with a very thick art book as well as a digipack for all 3 of the discs. And I love this series. I absolutely adore it. When they announced this edition, or when they announced that they had the license for this in the UK, I was like, day one, pre-order immediately, and I did so. I pre-ordered it in the Christmas sales, which is when they first went up, and I've been waiting patiently ever since. I really, really, really like this anime a lot. This is one that hasn't gotten a Blu-ray release in the US yet. I mean, I'm going to asterisk the yet, but I don't think anyone owns the license for it currently, or at least they've not said that they do. It was originally released in English in Region 1 areas under Bandai, and so it's kind of an interesting case in where they had like nice special edition versions of the first 3 singles, which had a whole special extras disc and interviews with actual NASA employees and getting into the science behind this series. And after the 3rd one, it wasn't selling as well, so they just chucked the rest of them on like standard DVD, got rid of that extra disc, crammed as many extras as they could onto a single disc, and then they released a complete fat pack collection and all sorts of things. But it's been out of print for a long time. I don't know how easy it is to get the entirety of the series anymore. I used to own all of the singles. Well, actually, I used to own the standard Fat Pack re-release plus the first 3 singles in order to get the special discs, the extra discs. And I technically still own it. I haven't gotten rid of that yet. And I might hang on to it because I don't think all of the original extras have made it to this. The NASA interviews in particular. But it's really, really wonderful. It's about a group of, it's about a group of astronauts in a near future in where space travel has kind of become normalized. And they all have various motivations as to why they want to be in space and work in space and whatever else. But they are, first and foremost, basically the janitors of space. They clean up all of the small pieces of debris that are orbiting Earth and surrounding space, which is very dangerous and is a very real issue. If shrapnel or debris hits a shuttle or a rocket or anything at any point, there's in space there's no friction, so velocity continues and doesn't slow down. There's no way to and even the smallest tiny little bit of loose metal or a screw or something can cause catastrophic consequences. Namely because humans, we can't survive in space. So if a little screw hits our rocket and it blows up, or it causes issues, and then the oxygen starts escaping, space is terrifying, but it's also fascinating. I really enjoy the idea of the outer space and the universe and all these sorts of things. So I really enjoy that speculative near future that Planetas has had as well. For those who don't know, this manga, and by extension this anime, is also done by the creator of Vinland Saga, which is a very different series, but also very popular, very well known nowadays. So maybe give this one a shot, give it a try, enjoy it. And really, really happy to have this particular release. I know that, at least in regards to the discs, these are probably the best this series is ever going to look. And just really, really happy that, at least for me, because I do import so much, both from the UK and the US, there's just so many options for me to enjoy. And this is one that I was definitely looking forward to for a very long time. The other MVM release that I got this month was another limited edition, obviously, as I mentioned. This is kind of a limited edition re-release of standard releases, if that makes sense. So rather than kind of hide or go on too long, this is the Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works complete series box set from the UK. So this contains both seasons of the Fate Stay Night, I guess, sequel, original series. It's Fate is one of those weird things where there's obviously the quote unquote original Fate Stay Night, which was put out by Dean many, many, many years ago now. And then Fate Zero was released by Ufotable, which was immediately followed by this, also from Ufotable, and of course followed by the Heaven's Feel movies, again by Ufotable. I wouldn't be surprised that now that the Heaven's Feel movies are done, that they will be looking into other parts of the franchise. Obviously, they started in Garden of Sinners, and plenty of the weird Saber kind of Fate Grand Order and things like that have been covered by other studios, but I wouldn't put it past them to go back and redo the Fate like original storyline with Ufotable, I wouldn't put it past them to try Tsukime again. I know people kind of don't like to even acknowledge that it has an anime because it's so bad, but I wouldn't put it past them to try and reimagine that in the studio. But who knows? This is all speculation. Regardless, this is a 2-disc or a 2-case chipboard box set with both seasons. Obviously, 1 season per keep case. And all of the discs of each season in these cases. So in both the limited editions and the standard editions in Australia, the UK, the US, it seems to be across the board. 4 discs for the 20 or 12 episodes. I don't remember. It's been so long since I watched this show. And it also has this little booklet, which is nothing. Oh, there we go. Yes, we have some episode lists. So yeah, there's 24 episodes plus I think 2 OVA special episode things. And so long-time viewers or people who remember my collection for some reason in great detail. I used to own the Australian standard release of season 1 of this and the UK standard release of season 2 because season 2 never got a standard release in Australia because Hanabi died. Well, they didn't die, they just decided to care more about Rooster Teeth. But the UK release was a fat pack. It was double the thickness of the stand. It was just a whole mess. It was just weird, especially because the UK standard was still a 4-disc release. They've done this a couple times. Their standard release for Bakemonogatari is the same, which is why I've had to Frankenstein it almost to a smaller 4-disc case, so it matches everything else. But regardless, here and in the UK, Fate Zero had a similar limited box set like this, where it contained the 24 episodes or 26 episodes or whatever it is in a 2-case slip box. And so when I found out this was coming, I was like, heck yes, I want to get that. And now I'm considering making a 3-disc box for the Heaven's Feel movies. So we have some just continuity across the franchise. So yeah, what to say about this? It's the immediate sequel to Fate Zero. It's the second storyline focused on it's the second storyline in the visual novel. It's adapting that. It's focused on Emiya's relationship with Rin Tosaka, this character here, rather than with Saber, which is the first storyline, and then or Sakura, who's the third storyline. And we learn more about Archer, this character here, and his relationship to Emiya. It's all a bit convoluted. I would also argue that I like with Clamp verse, I'm really not into this huge, like, ever expanding universe of Nasu verse. But in saying that, I do enjoy the Ufotable adaptations of Fate. I really enjoy Garden of Sinners and own all of that. I would be interested in any other kind of Fate-verse stuff that Ufotable did or has done, or will do, maybe is a better way of phrasing that. And I do want to finish the Lord El Milloy, whatever it is, spin-off, which is not Ufotable, but is about one of my favorite characters. So, you know, I'm not gonna say I hate the Fate-verse, because I clearly don't. And this series isn't one that well, it does have grand, sweeping, overwrought dialogue, speeches told to characters, as a lot of visual novels tend to be full of. But ultimately, and one of the strengths of Ufotable is just the incredible action animation for this. It is a very beautiful and captivating show. And it's exactly what you should expect from this franchise, from this studio. It's all around pretty good, and I'm happy to have a matching set to the Fate Zero. Limited edition that I got was another anime limited release. This probably won't surprise anybody. It's one that I, again, pre-ordered in holiday sales, I believe. Maybe not. Maybe I pre-ordered it a little bit afterwards. But regardless, this is Violet Evergarden, the TV anime series and the recap movies. I think there's 4, which are like longer director's cut version episodes of this series. Immensely popular, available to watch on Netflix. It's the story of a young woman who, after a horrific war in which she was a child soldier and under the direct she had like a captain or a major or something that she was personally very close to, very attached to, and they grew very close. He kind of helped her out of her situation, but kept her in the military, in which she became this, ruthless fighter. But now the war's over. She lost both of her hands, maybe arms, in this war, and she was separated with this major that she is very attached to. She's looking for him, unsure if he's even alive. And so she's trying to rebuild her life after this war, and in order to do so, she joins what is known as dolls, the post office dolls, where dolls will write letters on behalf of clients to send to people, because this is a period of time in this fantasy European setting. Well, I don't know, fantasy, in this old-timey fake historical European setting, that the literacy rate isn't super high, especially with writing. So she provides a service to people who want to be able to send a letter, share their emotions, share their thoughts with people important to them, but who don't have the ability to themselves. They just straight up don't have the education to send letters, or the emotionality to send the letters that they want, which is another big thing. So, cute animation, beautiful looking show. This is one of those series where I'm like, oh man, I can feel the manipulation of my feelings, but the thing is, comparatively to some of the stuff that I complain about in this regard, I never felt like angry that I was crying over this series. I knew it was coming, I knew it had happened, but it did have this really genuine quality to it, and maybe that's just because I'm a sucker, and also because I have a real love for the written word and for being able to express yourself in words and being able to tell the people you care about the things most important to you, and so many episodes, I love this series so much, and a lot of people did. It's one that is highly popular for a good reason. I think it just hits the right notes across the board. Certain episodes that definitely still even now stand out to me is the boy at the school. There's this one, the mother writing letters to her daughter for the future. Far out, man, that one hurts. The playwright, and of course the last episode where she goes to a war zone to send a letter to one of the soldiers there and writes a return letter. And oh my gosh, I'm getting goosebumps just even thinking about it. I have since seen both films. There's like an OVA, feature-length OVA, which is basically just two of these stories, or two or three of these episodes knit together. And then the sequel finale film, which was also fantastic and really does wrap up the story. It's the final chapter of the series. So for Anime Limited, they said that they were doing just the episodes and the recap, or director's cut, recap films, and then they will do a separate box for the actual other films of Violet Evergarden, which I think is kind of a smart move, but also maybe not. I don't know. I do appreciate getting those recap / director's cut episodes and films and things. It's just really, really cool. Great addition. Obviously I'm a fan of this series. It's one that's been highly anticipated, I think, by a lot of people. Another one that's released by Funimation in the US. I think their limited edition has been out of print since the moment it hit shelves, if not beforehand. The Memory Doll film OVA has been released in the US. It's also been released here in Australia. The show is actually the first place to get their Blu-ray release, although it is, from my understanding, just the Netflix version, which is like the shorter episodes and doesn't have fixed subtitles and things like that. So, and that's what the Funimation discs are as well. It's something that a lot of people complained about, and they're not going to fix because Funimation doesn't care about that. But Anime Limited, if nothing else, are really good about bringing the best version of their shows to people. And so when their initial release of this had major video quality issues, they completely halted production and went back and redid everything. So it was a little bit later than I think they wanted to, but it was definitely worth the wait. And really happy to have this finally. And I'm going to rewatch it probably with my mum and make her cry. So yeah, Violet Evergarden. With the UK releases, we have some standard stuff. This one I bought as a deal of the week from Anime Online, which is MVM's online store. I have not yet watched this series, but I know that I will probably enjoy it. I've read the manga, and I've heard nothing but good things about the anime, so I was like, well, I'll get it now whilst it's cheap, and not a huge amount of money to ship it to me here in Australia. And that is After the Rain, the complete series. I believe this is released by Sentai in the US. It is a 2-disc release about a teenage girl who has a crush on her mid-40s manager at the family restaurant that she works at. But rather than this being like a true age gap romance, which is not a fun time for me personally, as longtime viewers will know, I'm not really a fan of age gaps, and especially where one of the participants is a minor. But this is more so about, rather than being actually about romance, it's about their relationship with each other as people and the support they give each other in a non-romantic sense. It really does a great job of highlighting how people find things that they admire and want and wish for and reflect on in other people, even if that doesn't develop romantically. And for a young person, for a teenager, sometimes they can feel like that emotion is love, but it doesn't mean it is. And thankfully, a lot of people are good people and don't take advantage of that. And unfortunately, a lot of people are bad people and do take advantage of that. But that's not what this story is. There's no being taken advantage of here, thankfully. So, although I haven't watched the anime adaptation of this series, I am looking forward to watching it because I have read the manga. Liked it. I don't own it, because I don't know if I'll revisit it in manga form, but if I do want to revisit it, I think this is a good option as well. So After the Rain, I'm really happy to have it. It was great to get it for a deal, major discount, and yeah, I look forward to watching it when I do. A standard release that I got was a series that I watched streaming because I watched the first episode when it came out and was like, well, I watched half or like 10 minutes of the first episode when it came out and was like, what is this? Not for me. I don't think I'll like this. I'm just gonna not go there. And then when the COVID shutdown happened and I was stuck inside for months like everyone else in the world, I decided to go through my stalled or dropped anime. Well, first I completed everything that I hadn't finished anime-wise, and then I wanted to pick back up with a lot of series that I dropped or just put on hold. And I think this one was one that I put on hold rather than like just outright dropped because I'd heard pretty like interest over time. I'd heard people talk about it and it kind of piqued my interest again. So I watched it during COVID, and actually I really liked it. It definitely grew on me. It surprised me a lot. And from the general way that they market this series, it's not one that I think would immediately jump out at you as anything beyond the obvious. But there's actually quite a bit going on. And that is Punchline, the complete collection. So as you can tell, lots of girls wearing sexy things. And the inside discs are no better. And the title, like the commercial break cards, are no better. So this one definitely sells itself as an ecchi series. And don't get me wrong, it does have fan service elements to it. But more so than that, this is a story about a teenage boy who lives in a boarding house with a bunch of teenage girls, one who's in her early 20s, and sort of the shenanigans that goes on there. But at the same time, after he gets into a run-in with, I think there's a bus hijackers, and this magical girl fights the bus hijackers, and I think he dies. Something happens, and his spirit leaves his body. And then, if that happens, the end of the world happens. I'm not explaining this very well, but ultimately, this is a really interesting sci-fi about this kid who is trying to affect the future, and save people in the future. And there's also, and I mean, it kind of gets not hand-waved away because it's a pretty major aspect of the story, but our protagonist is, spoilers for the series, but it like legitimately surprised me, and I was very happy about this when it was revealed. It's like, oh, wow, that explains things and also makes sense. And then I'm like, this is probably going to have some sci-fi explanation, but it didn't immediately offend me when it did have the sci-fi explanation. So basically, rather than beating around the bush, our main character, our protagonist, this teenage boy, is actually a trans boy. And that's why he's able to live in this boarding house with all of these girls. And I think the sci-fi explanation for it kind of makes the trans experience even more valid about, like, whatever else. It's really interesting, and I think they do it well. And yeah, you know, there's some... If you like sci-fi, if you don't mind fan service shenanigans to a mild extent, it's really... Like, there's a lot of action in this one. There's quite a bit of, like, solid comedy. And, you know, kind of fan servicey romance as well. It's good. I liked it. It was good, and I was surprised how much I enjoyed this one, which is always a positive, I think. Give it a try if you haven't. And if you're looking for something a little less obvious, a little less well known, I don't know how many people have watched this show or were like me and was immediately turned off by, like, the amount of fan service or what the first episode especially tries to present itself as. But if you give it a chance, I think you might actually enjoy it a lot. But yeah, Punchline. I did also get a US Blu-ray DVD release. Technically, though, this has been long out of print and impossible to find in the US. I bought this from Japan. So sometimes reverse importation works because it means that I can get really hard to find US series from someone on Yahoo Japan who's now selling their US copy that they bought 5 years ago. But this is the, like, not a super fabulous show. It's a sequel to a show that is really good and I do really enjoy. Although I haven't rewatched it in a long time, so I should probably get to that. But this is the second season, or sequel season, of Darker Than Black Gemini of the Meteor, which is obviously the second season of Darker Than Black, where the original was following our main character, Hiei, who is a Chinese assassin guy with some sort of X-Men power. I don't remember because it's been a very long time. And I think in this one, because I have seen the series many, many, many years ago. I used to own the original Funimation, like, limited set, Blu-ray set, when they were putting out their limited editions in DVD size boxes. So I had that. This is a sequel. I think it focuses more on, like, the newly introduced side character story, as well as this girl, whatever her name is. A lot of people didn't like this sequel. I think people just dislike when characters they love change, and I think that's part of the reason why people really hated this one, because Hiei was, like, cool and hot and, like, all these amazing things in the original, and now he's, like, scruffy and worn out and not as cool, and he's disillusioned from all the, like, the group that he was a part of, and so he doesn't work as, like, a cool assassin anymore. So I feel like people would argue that that's a betrayal of the character. I would argue that's just how life is. That's just how growing up and getting old is. So I can't say that this is actually a good show. I don't remember enough of it to be like, yes, it's actually wonderful. It might be just, like, a lesser sequel. I'm sure it is a lesser sequel, but I do think there's elements that are interesting in this one, and just generally as a completionist, it's nice to have, and I was lucky getting it because it is very, very hard to find, because this is one of those titles that which is now broken down. So this is one of the titles that disappeared from Funimation because Aniplex refused to allow their titles to be licensed by other companies for a little while, and just this last year we've seen that change. But this one, along with like the original Full Metal Alchemist and various other series, and yeah, Black Butler, things like that, kind of disappeared into the ether. And this has still disappeared into the ether. Full Metal, at least Brotherhood and Black Butler, have re-emerged from the ether, because Aniplex is like, hey, we can still make money from this. But I don't think there'll be that much fanfare for this particular series. I'm just hoping that now that Aniplex is re-releasing some of their older stuff and or allowing other companies to license their titles, we may see Mushishi get the Blu-ray release that it so desperately deserves, including the second season. Even though I have the DVD sets for both, I will absolutely double dip. That has nothing to do with this, aside from having the same parent company in Japan. But yeah, Darker Than Black Gemini of the Meteor. It's a 12-episode series, plus I think 3 OVAs, which focus on the redhead girl. And this is a 5-disc set, so you have your 3 DVDs and then your Blu-rays. So yeah, I mean, I literally just don't remember enough to say if it's good or bad, but it's I have it, and I should probably rewatch it to say whether it is good or bad. Is all of the Australian Blu-ray releases that I got this month, and holy moly, guys, I kind of went crazy. So one of our retailers here, still currently I think, is having a buy one get one free for all Blu-rays across the board, movies, television shows, whatever genre you want, whatever, aside from pre-orders, of course. So I decided to catch up on basically all of the, well, not all of the series that I need, quote unquote need. I don't need any of this shit, but quote unquote, the ones that I want, the ones that I've been waiting for a sale for, I finally decided to jump on and get. And so, first is the first 2 seasons of Golden Kamuy. So you have season 1 and season 2. This has season 3. I haven't watched it yet. Season 3. I don't think I watched it yet. Maybe I have. Maybe I'm just that forgetful. COVID anime watching, there's a blur. There's a lot going on those months. But this is the adaptation of the manga of the same name about a ex-soldier and the immortal Sugimoto, who, after the war with Russia, back in the day, at the early last century, after he leaves that war, well, after it's finished, after he's kind of given up, he hears not given up. The war's over. He's wandering. He's trying to figure out what to do next, right? And he hears a rumor that there's a bunch of criminals. There's a bunch of criminals with tattoos all over their bodies, and all of these tattoos, when laid flat, create a map that will direct whoever has this map to immense gold, immense wealths and riches. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to do that because I need money for the girl that I'm in love with, aka my now dead best friend's fiance, because she has, I think she's going blind, and he's like, we need money to go to America to get her eyes fixed, right? That's the premise. And so he's chasing these criminals. He's trying to find these criminals who have these tattoos and then he runs into this girl, this Ainu girl, which, if you're not familiar, is one of the Ainu, or one of the native peoples of Japan, more specifically the very up north, Hokkaido kind of area. And she tells him that all of this gold that was stolen was actually Ainu gold, and the people who stole it from her tribe, or her community, murdered her dad, so she now wants to join him to get revenge on that. And she said, you can have the gold, like, I don't care about that, I just want to know what's going on. And then also, I think she just wants to see more of the world outside of her smallish community, but at the same time make sure he doesn't die, because obviously she knows the land much better than he does. And they meet all of these colorful characters, mostly criminals. And so yeah, they're basically on this treasure hunt. It's super violent, it's super funny, it's also a food manga. Lots of bears get murdered. Like, lots of people get murdered. There's just a lot going on in this series. And the mangaka loves buff men. And I'm here for it. It's honestly a very, very good series. I don't think I need to encourage people to read it. It's immensely popular. But it's also, I don't know if, I mean, there's issues, I think, with any anime adaptation, and more specifically, I think people complain about the CG integration with this one, but that's just such a nothing complaint, in my opinion. It's fun, I enjoyed it, but it was one that I wanted to wait for a sale to get, so obviously I did, and I was lucky that they had it in stock, so I could pick it up at my leisure. Series that I picked up 2 seasons for, another series that has a lesser sequel. The second season is by far more hated than the original, and I can understand why, but at the same time, I just finished watching it streaming, and I feel like people were just so excited for the second season and had such high hopes because the first season was so good that they automatically thought or saw something that was different and then hated it. And again, rather than spending too long pretending to be all subtle about things. So this is One Punch Man, Season 1, which was done by Bones. Incredibly fantastic with its action, animation especially. And then we have One Punch Man Season 2, different studio. Honestly, animation-wise, like, it's not Bones. Of course it's not. So of course it's not going to be at the same level. But I went into it having seen people complain about it for the entirety of it when it was airing, and still complaining about, like, how bad it is and how not funny it is and how the studio ruined it. And I watched it, and I had a great time. Honestly, I thought the villain aspect of Season 2 was way more interesting. It reminded me a lot of some of the best parts of Mob Psycho 100, which is the one series that I prefer comparatively to One Punch Man. Don't get me wrong, the first season it's a visual masterpiece. I really love Bones and all of their work that they do. They, if nothing else, can animate stuff just perfectly, amazingly. But the way that people talked about Season 2, you would have thought that it straight up went to people's houses and murdered their pets. Like, I don't understand why people were so upset, and I guess it was more so the letdown after having had Bones do the first season. But it was still good, and as I said, I found a lot of the character stuff more interesting, especially in regards to the villain of the piece. The comedy was, like, I'm not a huge fan of One Punch Man. I've read some of the manga, not all of it. And as I said, it's probably my least favorite of the 2 series that One has put out. And it's not one that I actively follow the manga with. But it's still good. I still enjoyed myself. I still thought it was pretty... There's a lot going on. It was pretty fun. And I think that's also the issue. For a straight-up comedy, I think people took it too seriously. People taking this superhero comedy too seriously. Which should be an oxymoron, but I don't think it is. Yeah. I've been meaning to get season 1 for ages because, again, even though it's not like my favorite thing, I do think at just rewatching it for the action scenes themselves is a great time. And again, I've already fangirled over Bones this video. But and then I was like, should I get season 2? Well, I'll buy it, and if I don't like it, I can always return it. You know, it's not really that big of a deal, blah, blah, blah. So I decided to stream it before I opened it up, because I couldn't, return it actually I hadn't received it at that point, so I watched it all in one night, and it was really good. I liked it a lot, actually. So yeah, One Punch Man season 1 and season 2. It's been a long time since I've seen the first season, but I thought season 2 was good, and I'm happy to have both now. Well, the next thing is another series that I enjoy, and I actually bought more than this, but 2 of them haven't shown up yet. This is a long series. It's one that's very fun. I am behind on currently because I haven't watched the most recent season of it. Although there is more coming out of it. Maybe that's giving it away what it is. But I bought more than this, as I said, but some of the later parts haven't shown up yet. I got... The disc case is not doing its job. Get back in there. We have JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Set 1, which is Part 1 and Part 2. So we have Jonathan Joestar and then Joseph Joestar when he's a young man, a teenage boy. And then we have Set 2, which is the first part of Part 3, with Jotaro. That's when they introduce stands and all the shenanigans that entails. Then we have Set 3, which is the second half of Part 3, Stardust Crusaders. So Phantom Blood, Battle Tendency, Stardust Crusaders in its entirety, across these three sets, and was also the first part to get released in English manga-wise. Obviously now, though, that's not the case, and we've gotten a lot of JoJo over the many years, namely helped by this new anime adaptation. And then I also have Set 6, which is the first half of Part 5, Golden Wind. So it means that I don't have Diamond is Unbreakable yet, but I assure you that I have bought it because Diamond is Unbreakable is my favorite set. Like, Josuke, best JoJo. I haven't watched enough of Giorno to really form an opinion, because I've literally watched 1 or 2 episodes of this from when it was streaming, and I'm looking forward to Jolene, because hell yes. But I am behind. So I have these 4 sets. I'm waiting on Set 4 and 5. Set 7 has been solicited, not yet released in English, or in Australia at least. So yeah, I don't need to talk about JoJo because everyone knows what JoJo is, and if you don't, it's also impossible to talk about JoJo because it is what it says, right? It's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and that's all the explanation you need, because if you try to get into any any of the specifics of anything to do with JoJo. It doesn't make any sense, and it's all crazy and weird and unpredictable. But basically, it's a grand epic spanning generations of a single family, the Joestar family, and then, yeah, other various branch families. And the protagonist is always a JoJo. So obviously from the Joestar, or Kujo, or I don't remember what Josuke's last name is, doesn't matter. And their first name starting with a Jo as well. And then bad guy. Originally actual vampire stepbrother, but then who makes other bad guys, and then magic stand powers where you have an invisible friend who can do a power, and then you gotta fight other people's invisible friends with your invisible friend. None of it makes sense, and 90% of it is music references, and then something will blow up, and then other things will just be memes, and people will just post a screenshot. There's something for everything in JoJo, and yeah, I mean, it's just a fun time. It's an experience, I think, is the easiest way to explain JoJo, and I enjoy that. As I said, part 4 is my favorite. I do like Josuke the best, and all of his friends, and like all of their adventures they have. I think I like it the most because after the slog that was Stardust Crusaders, because Stardust Crusaders, in my opinion, was too grand. There's too much going on, and so when it was scaled back into a kind of a smaller story, in part 4, it felt a lot more genuine. It felt a lot more interesting. All of the characters, I think, were developed more. There was still crazy, weird, batshit stuff happening, but it felt more like a bunch of crazy teens running around their city and like getting into trouble or saving the town in a kind of Stranger Things-esque move, except for all of the protagonists are incredibly muscle-bound men who are 15 years old. And a creepy guy. But also, like, bad stuff was happening. And, they were saving the world, and they were trying to stop the bad people. But also, they didn't have to go to Egypt or, like, fight the sun or climb a wall covered in oil. Like, there's a lot going on in JoJo. Or blast an ancient god into outer space, and that none of that is fake. That all happens. That all happens in JoJo. That all happens before these kids just run around their town, and helping people. And one of them gets a girlfriend. They help a ghost find peace, and they stop a serial killer. That's all you need. I am curious about part 5, which is set in Italy versus, England's the first one, the US, and then, the US is part 2. Part 3 is Japan, Egypt, and all various places in between. It was just nice. It was just nice. Part 5 I'm interested in, and is gangsters. That's all I know. That's all I know is gangsters. So yeah, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So it's 1 to 3 and then 6. Australian release. I actually didn't get this during the sales, but I did buy it. Well, I got it in a different sale, is what I should say. I got it for sale price, but not the same sale that I got everything else from. And that is Hunter x Hunter Part 5. this in the Australian Blu-ray release is the last of it. It's the election arc. So all that Australia's waiting for is the films, which I'm sure we'll get at some point. Yeah, I love Hunter x Hunter. I particularly love this 2011 anime adaptation, which I am biased to because this is what I was introduced to this franchise through. I've said it before, but I watched the first episode of the 2011 anime when it came out on Crunchyroll. I streamed it and was like, oh, I don't really know what this is about, but I'll check it out. Like, I probably won't like it. I saw the character designs and animation. I was like, eh. But at the same time, I was like, well, it is a popular series. I've heard of it before. I know it has an old anime. And I know that it's like super popular and kind of notorious for always being on hiatus, but even so, it's still popular. Plus, it's a Madhouse series, and they can either be like super amazing or just putting their B team on, so it turns out not that wonderful. I'll give it a shot. I'll see how it goes. And it was love at first sight, pretty much. Yeah, Hunter x Hunter, as a whole, is very near and dear to me. It's one that I adore. And this anime adaptation, in saying that, I do enjoy the 1999 version, which I've also seen and also own. But again, was what I came to after this one, or well, subsequently. I was watching it at the same time for a long period. But I feel like this series is, if we never get any more manga from Togashi, which honestly wouldn't be a bad thing considering his ongoing health problems. And I would absolutely not begrudge him just stepping away from the series forever. I feel like this series would be the just epitome of what Hunter x Hunter is. It was obviously made by people who really adore the series. At least on the Japanese side, there were so many fans working on the show, both animators and voice cast wise. And you could really feel the passion and the dedication and the love that the entire team had for this series. And I just really love it. I really, really love it. It also ends sort of at the perfect point, which is an open-ended, like, open to possibilities ending, but it has a finality to it. So if we don't ever get a follow-up to this, because we don't have that much manga content after this, to be perfectly honest, it doesn't feel unfinished. It doesn't feel like you need more. In saying that, I would love to see more from Hunter x Hunter. But absolutely not at the detriment of Togashi's health. And hopefully more people understand that now, especially since the very, very untimely death of Miura of Berserk fame, who recently passed away, which I'm sure everyone watching this video is aware of. But yeah, I love Hunter x Hunter in all of its forms. I really am a dedicated fan to the series. It holds a very special place in my heart, and I'm happy to have this final set for this version that I think is sort of the best of the best for this series. So yeah, Hunter x Hunter Part 5, notably being the end of the Ant arc and the entirety of the election arc. We have a DVD series, the only DVD that I got, also one that I wouldn't necessarily recommend, kind of a guilty pleasure series for me, but having talked about it recently a little bit, not this necessarily, but the franchise as a whole, has kind of got me wanting to rewatch this, and it was licensed and released by Funimation, surprisingly. I do hope we see the film one day, because that also is good. and I think has one of the more interesting parts of the series in it. But that is Sekaiichi Hatsukoi, the world's greatest first love. This is a very standard release that contains both seasons and the OVAs of this BL classic from the creator of Junjo Romantica, which also has 3 seasons. Does this have 3 seasons now? I don't remember. It's been a long time. But this is the story of Ritsu Onodera, who 10 years prior fell in love with a boy at his school. And they dated for a little bit, but then there was a huge misunderstanding, and they broke up, and they're heartbroken, ran away. He basically said, like, I'm never going to love again. Now it's been 10 years, and he has quit his job in his parents' publishing house. He wants to prove himself. He loves editing, and he loves reading, loves novels, so he applies to a rival company to prove that he's not just, the son of the boss. He's proven his worth. He can work as better and as hard and deserves as much recognition as anyone else. But he gets assigned to the shoujo manga division, which is not great for him because he's sworn off of love of any sort. And obviously shoujo manga very typically has a romance aspect to it. And so, but he kind of decides, well, I'm gonna stick it out here, and if I do well, then maybe they'll transfer me to the literature team, blah, blah, blah. And after probably a couple weeks, maybe a week, he discovers, he finds out, realizes that his boss, his gruff, grumpy, super rude boss, but incredibly good at what he does, and at the same time, like, really inspiring in how he values the work that these women have put or done for these shoujo manga creators, and leads his team very well, and turns the entire, like, the whole magazine around, and now they're doing so well, and blah, blah, blah. His boss, who he kind of hates, is the boy that broke his heart 10 years ago. And so he's like, more hates. But then they find out, they actually talk. They actually talk, and it's like, oh, it was all a big misunderstanding. But now Ritsu, he's been heartbroken for so long. Can he learn to love again? And that's basically the entire plot. And the whole thing is like a will they, won't they. Well, not a will they, won't they. They have sex, like, immediately. But it's Ritsu not wanting to, like, admit that he's falling in love again. And he still has feelings for this boy that he thought hurt him so badly. But he's not gonna change his mind or, like, be the first one to admit his mistakes because he's proud, and he doesn't want to admit to that embarrassment. And what if he opens himself up again, but he just gets hurt again, and blah, 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 blah. And it's not good necessarily, but I do enjoy it. I really, like, the manga is my popcorn kind of, it's not good for you. It's not high art, but dang it if it isn't delicious. And sometimes you're just watching a dumb action movie and you need some popcorn. That's what Sekaiichi Hatsukoi, aka the world's greatest first love, is for me. And in a similar vein to the creator's other series, Junjo Romantica, they actually take place in the same universe as well, because of, like, subtle crossover stuff, publishing industry stuff. We also have 2 other couples, which is these 2, one of the other editors and one of the manga artists for their magazine, who are childhood friends and have been together forever, and I don't really remember much about them because I don't really like them, which, shock horror, can you believe it? Because I am the childhood friends to lovers queen. I just don't really care about these two whatsoever. And I'm glad they're not in it much, to be honest. And then these two who are actually the best couple of the group, which another one of the editors, and then a bookstore employee, which again, shock horror, this is the age gap one. No one's a minor, which is good. But the Kisa and Yukina are my favorite, and they're good. I like them a lot. And yeah, I mean, these two are fine. I'm not gonna complain. It's their story. Like, I wouldn't be reading it if it wasn't, like, at least a little bit invested in these two. Which I am. So, yeah, I mean, this is not fabulous. I will say that it, in my opinion, is leagues better than Junjo Romantica. But I'm also biased in that, again, I don't like age gap romances, which 2 out of 3 of the couples are in Junjo Romantica, especially if one of them is a minor, which one of the 3 are, and the other one is very cusp there, 18, just making the cutoff. I do like the third couple that isn't, well, I mean, kind of an age gap, but they're both adults. Back when I watched that series, because I have seen 2 of the seasons at least. I never watched the 3rd season. No, I never watched the 3rd season. I'm like, did I? I don't think so, because that came out way later after the first 2. Yeah, this is still tropey. It's still like, you better be prepared for this sort of content. But I do like it more than Junjo, which I actively do not like for the most part. And I don't know, it's just kind of cheesy and fun. And I always, like, whenever a new volume comes out, I read it immediately because I'm like, oh, well, how long is Ritsu gonna, be humming and hawing again? He's still, oh my gosh, it's just not, I don't want to say it's the slowest slow burn ever, because it's not. Ritsu is in love, he just doesn't want to say he is. But also, like with any good BL, it gets to the good stuff, aka the spicy stuff, aka the sex, like, immediately as well. So it's not even like it took a while for their physical relationship to get going. No. So yeah, I mean, if you're into it, check it out. It's definitely not going to be one for everyone. And in my opinion, there's way better BL anime as well out there than this, but I like it, and so I decided to finally get it because the price went down on Amazon. And yeah, I've been meaning to get it for a little while. Just one of the few remaining DVD sets that I have, because I don't have a huge amount of those anymore. So yeah, so much anime this month. Thankfully not like a lot of stuff that I haven't seen. These are just purchases of things that I've already seen I wanted in the collection, and finally just jumped to it and got the physical release, because I know that I'll probably want to rewatch them at some point, and I don't also always want to be relying on streaming for that. So yeah, let me know your thoughts, feelings, opinions on any of these titles. Love them, hate them. I love to hear your comments, and I do try to respond to as many as I can. Great mix of stuff, I think, genre and theme and demographic and everything else. Nice to catch up on a lot of stuff via the sale that just happened. Nice to have some long-awaited limited editions arrive as well, which was just really exciting. So yeah. I think that's it. I will obviously be posting my manga update or pickup video as well, so if you're interested in that, you can head on to that one. That one's also going to be super long. Spoilers, it's going to be freaking long. Like this one has been. So May was a big month of purchases and orders coming in and all sorts of things. So yeah. As always, if you enjoyed this video, if you're wanting more content like it, then you may want to subscribe. I also host a podcast with my good friend Ray from Whimsical Pictures. That I post here as well as on podcasting platforms called Read Right to Left. Newest episode should be out by now, and that's done monthly. Otherwise, you can also follow me on my social media at CollectingG. That's G-E-E, all one word. And that's linked in the description below. If you're wanting to talk to me directly or see what I'm doing, what I'm reading, what I'm obsessing over this week, you can follow me there. And yeah, I will catch you in the next video, guys. So look after yourself, stay happy, stay healthy, be kind to each other, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye till then.